Hey, so let's talk about what happened the night after the pay-per-view, John. Bret Hart is going to officially announce in the ring that he has re-signed with the WWF and he hopes to stay with the company forever. In the building that day, Bret did sort of kayfabe the decision, or did he? You know, the fans didn't know. Did you guys know? Did you know that Bret was sticking around? Because this was promoted as if we were going to hear Bret's decision. Now, as an adult fan, I could say, well, obviously he's staying or they wouldn't put him on TV. But as a kid, I thought maybe they're going to give him a moment to say goodbye to the fans. We know that's not how it wound up being. You can even see a pensive shot of Vince McMahon sitting at ringside. He was the commentator in that era. And he seems so relieved when Bret announces that he's signing a contract and he's staying with the WWE forever. It was a 20-year deal, but what do you guys remember in the locker room about this moment?
Yeah, I don't remember if we knew beforehand that Bret was going to say this. I don't want to tell you something that is not true. I think we thought, to my recollection, we knew he's going to resign with WWE, to my recollection. Now, maybe I'm wrong about that. You know, it's been 25 years or more, whatever it's been, or good Lord, it's been longer than that. It's been almost 30 years. So maybe I'm wrong about that, but I remember this wasn't a huge surprise. We thought Bret was going to resign. You know, Bret was very loyal to WWE, and WWE is very loyal to Bret, you know, and he was our main guy. You know, he and Taker were our main two guys. And so I don't think anybody really thought that he was leaving. I think everybody thought that Bret was going to resign. Bret was WWE through and through. And so I don't think there was any really thought about Bret was going to go somewhere else.
So we know that ultimately he does stick around, but it's a 20-year contract. Does the locker room ever hear that piece of information that it's supposed to be a 20-year deal? Because that feels like unprecedented in wrestling.
Yeah, I remember, you know, when I go over the notes for this show, I remember back in the day, I don't remember when I first heard about it, but I did hear that this was a 20-year deal. Yeah. That this was a long-term deal, and it wasn't all involved with just wrestling, involved being an agent, involved being with the company. And, you know, I thought it made sense to us. You know, Conrad, we weren't making a lot of money at the time. And so if a guy he's our top guy, he and Taker, if you sign this guy to a long-term contract, that's good for us. You know, we don't want the guy to go. You know, he's one of the guys drawing, you know, the crowds that we have, even though crowds weren't huge. Without Bret, we just don't have a marquee name. You know, Taker and a couple of the guys, but you know, Bret's one of the big parts of WWE. So the guys, to my recollection, were all pretty happy that Bret had resigned because it gives us some stability.
Are people talking about the money? I mean, I know that you've told us before that was something you never asked about. You never wanted to go down that road, but I'm sure there was somebody in the locker room who was, hey, so-and-so's getting such and such. As the story goes, he is doing a 20-year deal. The idea being he would have 3 years as a wrestler, reportedly $1.5 million per year. And then he would serve for 7 years as almost like a Pat Patterson style advisor to Vince. And then another decade, 10 years as like the Babe Ruth of the WWF. So almost an ambassador, if you will. When you hear it's a 20-year deal, are there people griping about that? And then when you hear the amount, allegedly 1.5 million, that's got to be a huge increase from most everyone in the locker room at that point. Does it spin up jealousy or how is that received?
It ain't an increase, Conrad. It's freaking in a different universe than what we were making. Good grief. It wasn't even close to what we were making. I've said it before when I was making, the only salary I'll mention is the first year, because I've said it a few times. I made $77,000 my first year in WWE, and I was on every single pay-per-view to my knowledge, and every single house show. So, you know, after you pay taxes and pay your rent and stuff, I mean, $77,000 in 95 and 96 seems like a lot, but not when you're on the road 250 days a year. It's really not that much. So I don't know what anybody else was making. I only, you know, you tell me what Bret was making, I certainly take your word for it. And that's what I heard, you know, elsewhere. And that's what I heard back then. That it's not like it's an increase from what some of us were making. It was a different universe from what some of us were making. And that was fine with me. I had no problem with it. Bret, I thought Bret deserved it. I thought Bret earned it. And what I liked about it was if Bret could make it, if I get lucky enough to make it to the top, then I can make that too. I don't know anybody begrudged him for making that. We just saw it as opportunity. If Bret can make that, then if we make it to that spot, we can make that as well.
Hypothetically, how do you think guys like Shawn and The Undertaker would feel about that? I mean, they've been carrying the mantle while he had been on a long absence. While he's out, because this is important, he's going to peace out at the end of WrestleMania 12. So that's late March. We know 2 months later is when Scott Hall shows up on Nitro. And then, in July, so 3 months after he's been gone, that's when Hogan turns heel. The whole world changes. And you see all this momentum now with WCW through July, August, September. Now here he is in October. Clearly, this is perfect timing for Bret to get a big contract from Vince. I can't help but think if Bret had tried to negotiate this deal for himself just a handful of months earlier, let's say if he would have tried to get this pitch across the goal line before WrestleMania 12, hey, I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to take a break. I'm going to keep, I'm going to ride this thing till the wheels fall off, and I'll stay with you 20 years. I don't know that he gets 1.5 out of Bret or out of Vince. Around WrestleMania 12. I think the NWO had to get hot in order for there to be leverage on Bret's side. Am I off base, or does that make sense?
No, 100%. NWO changed the world. I mean, absolutely changed the world. They changed everything. They got guaranteed contracts into the equation. They got big money contracts into the equation. That wasn't there before. And there's no way that Vince gives a guaranteed contract, in my opinion, before the NWO comes along. When the NWO comes along and Scott and Kevin changed the world, along with Eric, I mean, it made everything different in the monetary payouts different in the wrestling business. When I went after the Montreal Screwjob 2 days later, I went to Japan. I never intended on coming back. I just always thought I'd stay in Japan. I figured to finish my career over there. The world changed during this time because of the NWO, Scott and Kevin and Eric. And when I came back, now all of a sudden they want to sign guys to guaranteed contracts. That wasn't even on the table before the Montreal Screwjob and before Scott and Kevin and Eric came along.
So let's think about that. If Bret had tried to speak to both sides, and as the story goes, he did have conversations with Eric Bischoff, and I think Bret even gifted Eric a book about Western culture and heritage and things like that. Because they both were, half-assed cowboys in their mind, roll tide on that. But I do wonder, what would that have looked like if Bret Hart shows up in the fall of '96 and he is joining the NWO? What's that look like for the WWF at that point?
If Bret joins the WCW in fall of '96
and joins the NWO, so it's Hogan, Hall, Nash, Waltman, and Bret Hart. It really is the New York contingent here invading Atlanta. And no disrespect, but you've still got Shawn Michaels and you've got The Undertaker, but those are really the only established stars. Yeah. Steve Austin's starting to warm up, but let's be honest, he needs the rub from Bret Hart to get there. I think even Steve would say that Bret sort of helped bring him up. That would have just been absolutely disastrous for the WWF, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it would have been. I think the main thing, it's like Lanza told me when I was so worried about Bret leaving, everybody else leaving, said, as long as that guy, and he pointed to Vince, he goes, as long as that guy's in that chair, we're fine. And I felt a lot easier about it then. I still was pretty nervous about it. We still had Vince, and we still had Kevin Dunn and the best production in the world. But we didn't have the benefit of Mr. McMahon, which the Montreal Screwjob created, which is one of the greatest heel characters in history. Mr. McMahon and Stone Cold, and we didn't have Bret making Steve at WrestleMania if all this happened. So yeah, I think it's an absolute disaster for WWE. I don't know how it ends up. We still had a lot of chips. We had a lot of chips because we had the better production, and we had Vince. And that's it may have taken us a while. I think we'd have been okay, but boy, that changes the world if that happens.
It's fascinating to think, what if, I think a lot of people have spent time thinking about what if Shawn had come down and joined the NWO, but what if Bret did? Man, it would have been wild.
SaveWithConrad.com. My name's Rajiv. I'm in Sacramento, California. I came to Save with Conrad because I've heard Conrad talk about how he helps people all the time save money and the best route to go for getting some mortgages and finances done. And having heard so many different testimonials in the past, it made the most sense to go this route. We were in the market for a new house and we wanted to know what we could afford. So we spoke with Steve and then Diane to get through the pre-approval process to see what we could afford. And then once we were able to understand that aspect of it, that was when we were able to shop around for a house to get a mortgage through Save with Conrad. Everybody on the team was great. Everybody really explained everything fully to where it was more in like layman's terms to where I could understand it as someone not in the business or having shopped around for houses too many times. So being able to understand every step of the process and talking with everyone on the team about that was really, really helpful. And it made me feel really confident that I was going the right route. I would definitely recommend Save with Conrad to others. I know that sometimes people look at it and they go, oh, they're based in Alabama. What could they help me with? But I'm out here in California and they were able to square everything away and get things done really quickly, as opposed to sometimes even people out here don't move as quickly as the Save with Conrad team. So everything was really well done, really efficient, and I would definitely recommend Save with Conrad to others. My name is Rajiv. I'm in Sacramento, California, and I was able to get into my dream home with SaveWithConrad.com.
That's number 212, non-equal housing lender. SaveWithConrad.com.